Welcome to Newslines365.com. Today, we are discussing the devastating earthquakes that have recently struck northwest Syria, and the UN's failure to provide much-needed aid to the people in need. Join us as we explore the heartbreaking realities of this humanitarian crisis. The UN must step up and act now to prevent further tragedy in Syria. On February 6, 2023, a devastating earthquake struck northwest Syria, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. With the number of deaths continuing to rise and thousands of families having to move, it is clear that the international community needs to act quickly. The UN must act swiftly and decisively to ensure humanitarian aid reaches those affected and that recovery efforts are successful. It is essential that the UN act now to prevent further suffering and destruction in Syria. Why the UN must step up and act now. Here are some key facts about the earthquake. 1. More than 4,400 deaths in northwest Syria have been reported till February 16, but the real death toll is likely much higher due to the lack of a proper recording system, as well as the displacement of people in Idlib and Aleppo. It is impossible to know the exact number of casualties, as there is no accurate record of those who have been internally displaced and recently migrated to these areas. 2. As of February 16, a staggering 9,000 partially or fully damaged buildings have been recorded in the area. This number highlights the urgent need for restoration and rebuilding efforts to be made in northwest Syria to protect its citizens and help them recover from the destruction. 3. The devastating earthquakes in northwest Syria have taken a heavy toll on aid workers, with local sources reporting that over 70 have tragically lost their lives. Those affected include personnel from non-governmental organizations, NGOs, who were providing much-needed humanitarian assistance to northwest Syria. This disaster has come at a time when the people of northwest Syria are already desperately short of skilled manpower and resources, and will only amplify the extreme challenges they have been facing for more than a decade. 4. The situation in the healthcare sector is dire. At least 55 healthcare facilities have been reported as partially or fully damaged across the country, resulting in the disruption of critical services for countless individuals. This is a major concern for healthcare providers and patients alike, as these facilities are essential for providing adequate care. It is imperative that the UN and international agencies act now to ensure that these facilities are quickly repaired and restored to their former state to provide the best care possible for all. Without urgent action, the situation will only worsen, leaving many without access to the quality healthcare they deserve. Why UN agencies fail in providing humanitarian assistance even after 2 weeks of earthquakes. Here are 7 key identified gaps that may have contributed to the lack of a timely response to the crisis in northwest Syria. 1. Delayed in the deployment of a special observer for northwest Syria. 2. Lack of in-person diplomacy by UN with the country officials in Turkey and Syria. 3. Delayed in forming a response team with skilled. 4. Delayed negotiation for opening all border crossings with Turkey. 5. No UN resolution on the special humanitarian corridor via Turkey. 6. Urgent need for joint UN and government task force committees in Turkey for cross-border humanitarian assistance to northwest Syria. 7. Lack of coordination between the country office and the cross-border team. On behalf of the people, Newslines 365 is urging the UN must step up and act now and find a way to open cross-border routes from Turkey and provide help to the neglected northwest of Syria, where approximately 5 million people are expecting assistance from the international community, particularly UN agencies such as UNICEF, WFP, UNDP, OCHA, and WHO, before the situation spirals out of control. It has been more than 2 weeks since the earthquakes hit Turkey and Syria, and the magnitude of the tragedy is now deeply apparent. On February 17, the death toll from the Turkey-Syria earthquakes surpassed 45,000, making this one of the most devastating natural disasters in modern history. Hundreds of thousands of people are buried under the debris, as desperate family members wait for some sign of hope for their loved ones. The full extent of the loss of life may never be known. Millions of people have been displaced, and some areas have been nearly wiped out. The anguish of the bereaved and the suffering of the displaced remain palpable. The people of northwest Syria have been unforgivably forgotten during this terrible time. Despite Mr. Martin Griffiths, the United Nations' top humanitarian official, speaking out on the issue, little action has been taken on the ground. This is the heartbreaking reality for the people in northwest Syria, who are always told by the UN that things will get better but never do. Only scant amounts of aid have been able to pass from Turkey into Idlib province, leaving many struggling to survive. The UN must step up and act now. The people of northwest Syria cannot wait any longer for help. People are getting angry because the UN can't help those hurt by the earthquakes in northwest Syria as much as they need to. The UN must step up and act now in light of Mr. Griffiths' honest admission that this is a failure on the part of the UN. People who are to blame for the lack of help in northwest Syria must be held accountable and brought to justice for the many lives lost, and the pain they have caused. Such inexcusable and unprofessional behavior cannot be tolerated, and the incompetence of the person in charge of providing aid is a gross violation of human rights, and a direct violation of UN rules. We urge the UN to take swift action to prevent any more unnecessary suffering. The crisis in Syria is a dire one. Civil war, airstrikes, poverty, a crumbling infrastructure, and an outbreak of cholera have all made things worse. Sadly, the lack of basic resources to address these issues has become a severe burden, leading to the catastrophic loss of innocent lives and the severe malnutrition of thousands of children. It is clear that the UN and the international community must step up and act now. Last summer, they didn't do enough to stop an outbreak of cholera in northwest Syria, which led to unnecessary deaths of innocent children and caregivers. We cannot wait any longer and risk more innocent lives. It is essential that the UN rise to its responsibility and show a sense of urgency and humanity. We must make sure that no more lives are needlessly lost, and that those responsible for the delay and inaction in responding to the cholera outbreak and the recent earthquakes in northwest Syria are held accountable. This time, let us act now and ensure that such tragedies are never repeated again. It's time for the UN to demonstrate a greater sense of urgency and humanity, and to ensure that those responsible for this negligence and inefficiency are held accountable. The United Nations is urgently appealing to the Syrian government to immediately allow the delivery of humanitarian aid to the people of northwest Syria, who are facing immense suffering due to the ongoing conflict. Without this help, the people living in this area will continue to go through a lot of pain and suffering. But the process via Damascus will take a while, and the only way to provide help right away is through the Turkish border. If the UN headquarters didn't keep an eye on the aid, we could see the same terrible results as when cholera broke out in northwest Syria. It's time for the UN to take action and make sure that help is given in a timely and responsible way. The UN must step up and act now to help the people of northwest Syria. Our focus must be on providing assistance through Turkey, as it is safe, secure, and acceptable for all those in the region. Currently, help is only reaching them through one border crossing, so it is absolutely essential that we open up all 3 border crossings to ensure vital aid is delivered. We must also negotiate for the establishment of emergency corridors for humanitarian aid so that immediate help is available in case of any further catastrophic disaster in northwest Syria. The UN's head of humanitarian aid must take immediate action to provide much-needed assistance to those in need. The United Nations must take urgent and decisive action to reduce human suffering and bridge long-standing divides. By deploying sincere and honest diplomacy, backed up by international pressure, the UN can ensure lasting and meaningful change. Moreover, UN personnel must be held accountable for their inaction and delay in providing vital aid, sending a powerful message to those who are not adequately and impartially representing the vulnerable. At Newslines365.com, we are committed to continuing to monitor the situation and ensure the voices of the marginalized are heard without prejudice. It is time for the UN to step up and take action to make a real difference in people's lives. We must not let another day pass without meaningful action. Be the voice of change, become a humanitarian journalist and empower the marginalized. Do you want to become a humanitarian journalist and use your voice to speak up for the marginalized and deprived? If so, send your stories to us and join the Newslines365.com team. We don't accept any ads, instead, we rely on our viewers and readers to support our mission of delivering impactful stories. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of Newslines365.com. We truly appreciate your contribution and hope that you continue to use our platform. Please keep visiting us and make sure to share your suggestions and feedback. We look forward to hearing from you.